An occupation?
Kenneth Jenkins, retired from the Detroit Fire Department.
All right. When did you buy this house?
June of 2000.
And how did the collapse of the house market affect you with this house?
Well, we were actually in the house before that happened, but the main reason that the financial collapse was it was questionable lending in the I had it written down somewhere.
Oh, I saw that too.
Yeah. One of the main reasons that the financial collapse was a lot of questionable lending by banks to for subprime mortgage loans. Don't laugh.
No, I'm not laughing at you. I can't read my handwriting.
Okay.
All right. Was your mortgage raised at all because of this?
Well, what happened was that the banks gave a lot of questionable loans to the people who really weren't qualified to get those loans, and the people who applied for the loans, they didn't read the fine print of the loans. My oldest daughter had a questionable loan from a bank. Well, her original mortgage rate was about 3%, but 2 years later, that 3% went to 8%, and it doubled her the amount of the loan that she had, and she had to let the house go because she couldn't afford the note on the house. And that happened to millions and millions of people, and it caused the whole country to go into a big recession. Go ahead.
So your mortgage wasn't raised?
No, I was fortunate. I had a pretty good credit rating, and at the time, I got about an 8% loan, which was the par rate at that time.
All right. So did you take out any other kind of loan in the early 2000s at all?
No, I refinanced this house 3 times, and it helped me out a great deal.
All right. Do you know who Alan Greenspan is?
Alan Greenspan was, I'm trying to think what was his title.
He was the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Right. He was the chairman of the Federal Reserve appointed by George W. Bush.
And he was the one who lowered the interest rates to historic lows, 1.5%.
Well, he was one of the ones, and it was his decision. There was a lot of easy money going around, and people were just taking out, like I say, a lot of questionable loans and everything else, and the banks were making a lot of risky loans to unqualified people, and that just put the country in a bad way.
Do you agree with what he did when he lowered the interest rate?
Well, at the time it looked good, but it's similar to what it is now. Everything is stock market's at all-time high. A lot of people making money in the stock market, but what goes up always comes down. And that's why I'm really concerned about today's economy.
Do you know who Ben Bernanke is?
Ben Bernanke, he was after Greenspan left, he was the next head of the Federal Reserve.
And instead of actually doing something to help the increasing inflation, he kept the rates at the same rate as Greenspan did.
Yeah, they were artificially set low. They should have been raising them, but they didn't. Trying to keep the economy going.
And do you think he should have done something about it, or when he first got in there?
Well, what he should have done and what he did is two things. I don't think he did enough, and I think the one who came in after him, Janet Yellen, I think she did I had no problems with her policies.
Okay. The home ownership and equity protection was created to address abusive practices in refinances and closed-end home equity loans. Do you think this helped people at all during the recession?
Well, what it was designed to do, and what the Congress actually let them do is two things. It was, well, you got to realize the difference in the two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. The Republicans believe we shouldn't have any regulation, and the Democrats believe that we should have at least minimal regulation to help the consumer in the, well, I wouldn't say the lower class people, but the less fortunate of us.
Okay. So, when interest rates went down, banks borrowed the most money. Why do you think they did that?
Well, the lower the interest rates is, the lower your house mortgage is, and the student loans and everything is low. But when inflation goes up, the banks tend to increase the interest rates, and that knocks out a whole lot of people from getting a loan. Like I said, if you wanted a car loan or student loan or trying to buy a house, the higher the interest rates, the less people who can qualify. And the banks, it's in their interest to make money and to have as many loans out as they can, and it's almost like a vicious cycle, and that's one of the things we're going through right now. Inflation is at a moderate rate, but they've got to raise the rates up in order for people to, to keep inflation under control.
When it came time for the banks to pay off all of the money they borrowed, and they couldn't, who do you think paid it off?
Well, the federal government did. It was trillions of dollars, and we had to do that to save the banks. Otherwise, the country would have been in a total collapse if we had made those loans to the big banks like AIG and Wells Fargo and what's that, J.P. Morgan, Chase, all those big banks. They had to be bailed out because of the practice that had been going on for years and years and years.
Okay, so you know what AIG is?
Yeah, that
American International Group.
Right.
Well, it failed, and because of that,
it failed, but we bailed them out, and so they are back in business now.
I know, but because of that, 50 of the largest firms failed too.
Yeah.
Did you know that the homeowners, like you were unknowingly paying 85% of your money to AIG to pay off your debt?
Yeah. Well, that was the safety net. They had I can't think of the name of the rules that were in place, but a lot of rules that was in place as a safety net. Now, they have all just been disregarded with this administration we got now. Everything that the President Obama did to try to help the consumer and the lower people, it's all been did away with.
Now, how did you feel when you found out that your money was going to them? Did you feel any type of way?
Well, I just felt helpless. There's nothing I could do. You could protest it, but who you gonna protest it to? If you got the people that's in control at the federal level that just looking the other way while the banks were doing what they did, and it's almost like a kettle that was boiling. It just boiled over just before the election, and that would cause the country to go into the stock market collapse, and that just put everything in motion for the country going into a recession.
Who do you think is to blame for all this?
Well, a lot of people are blame, but I'm being real partisan about this, and I think the Republican Party, more than anybody, was to blame for this last recession, to me. And like I said, they saw all of this coming. George Bush and the Republican Party, they did everything they could to keep things under control before the election, but if you go back in your history, 2 months before the elections in November of 2000, September of 2008. That's when the stock market collapsed. Lost about 800 points, and everything went downhill from there. But they all saw this coming. You know, all the questionable loans and everything, all this fraudulent practices. But I mean, the country was in a mess. But like I said, the Republican Party did everything they could to try to keep things under control before election day, but it just didn't work out.
Hot dog. All right. Are there? Do you think there are still consequences today of what happened back then?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, it's with all the practice that our present administration. I mean, it's just a very so much wealth is concentrated to the top 0.1% of the population. They control so much, and just if you look at the policy of this last tax cut that we got from Donald Trump and the Republicans, 90% of this tax cut goes to the top 1% of income earners and the corporations. When I say the top 1%, if you make $450,000, your earned income, you can see the benefits of Donald Trump's tax cut. And if you're a large corporation with offshore investment, you benefit from it. And like I said, our president, he's got 5 or 6 companies offshore that he tax package. And well, we can. I don't want to go into detail on that. But.
All right. Thank you so much for spending your time.
No problem.
All right. I'll see you when I turn this on.
Okay.